What is good? We're back. We got a guest today making us a full tripod, which is something that we thoroughly enjoy. I got my man Jay Wayne, and we got Angelo of Angelo Analysis and of the Twitter fame, of course. So if you're not following Angelo, go ahead and follow him at Angelo_fantasy. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be back.
Yeah, man. We had you before really the off season to kind of break us in, ease us in, and now the draft is upon us. So we wanted to, circle back around and dive a little deeper. And I'm sure we've explored more people at this point. So, and obviously so many things have changed. So definitely thought you were the guy to bring back and chit chat with. And we told all of our people, hey, we're going to dive into this, but we're also going to bring other people in because it's important to hear their opinion and have a discussion about it. So you're one of the guys that we brought in.
Cool, man. No, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Jay Wayne, how you doing?
I'm a little upset about a bad sexual episode I had last night. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good, tired, newborn, baby, all good though. I'm glad to have Angelo on. Good to see you again, buddy. Got you relocated, new digs.
Yeah.
Feeling good. I'm sure the girls.
What's that address and that social?
Mother's maiden name.
What high school did you go to?
Let me shoot you in that private chat.
Yeah.
You're right. That's funny.
But yeah, man, we're ready to roll. For more of what we got going on, be sure to subscribe to the channel, 5-star review the podcast, all those good things. If you want one of these T-shirts, hit us up at revelrybrewing.com, and you can go ahead and get yourself one of those. You won't regret it. All right, so we're going to run through some wide receivers. We're going to run through some running backs. We're going to start with the wide receivers, and I think, most people pretty much have Burks, Wilson, Drake in some order, iteration of that deal. I think at that point, it's kind of like ice cream, flavors, all that kind of jazz. What do you like? What's your type? You like blondes? You like brunettes? You a thigh guy or a breast man? You never know. So
I kind of sort of like it all.
who do you like? And is there anybody else in that tier that you want people to put a little bit more respect on their name?
Yeah, I think there's really four guys that are pretty close. Yeah, there's four
Where's
guys that are pretty close for me. The first three guys are all within a couple percent of each other in terms of their ascension grades in the website. So like Burks, London, and Wilson, you could just flip a coin.
Sure.
Really. Those three guys are going to be pretty much the consensus top three of this whole class. I think the safest bet for immediate production is probably going to be Wilson. I think he's the one that's the most quote unquote NFL ready.
Yeah.
He's the one who runs, the broadest route tree. He can slot in anywhere at X, at Z in the slot, and he'll win and do pretty well.
Yeah.
Burks
wins in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, he's pretty versatile there. So I think he's going to, I think he's a top 10 pick really.
Yeah.
In this class. I think he, 8, 9, 10. I think I have him right now probably going to the Jets.
The Jets, yeah.
I think that makes sense for that. Him or London going there.
Is he kind of a Diggs type? Is that where you would, or what do you think?
I had him more of like a Diontae Johnson.
Okay. Well, I like both of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, like, he's going to win in different ways. He's really good, control in the air. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's going to get the job done.
Yeah.
He's going to be a number one receiver in NFL offense here pretty soon. I don't think he's like a mega talent or anything, but I think he's going to be a chain mover and wants to be the focal point of an offense. And then you have, London, who I think is a Brandon Marshall type of player. Really big physical receiver. I think he projects the best early on in his career actually as a big slot receiver. He moves really well for his size. He's faster than you guys probably think and the public thinks. He's 21 miles an hour on GPS too. So he's a guy that can roll a bit downfield. Takes a little while to uncoil and get going. And then you got Treylon Burks. I think Burks is the one who has the highest ceiling in this class. For me, he's like a mix between like Demaryius Thomas and Laviska Shenault Jr. He's one of those guys.
Like that.
Yeah, I do. You know my Visca love, dog. But for me, man, it was the versatility. The multi-dimensional skill set with the ball in his hands is really important for me. He's not just a go up and get it guy. I think he operates kind of the best in a role where he can be like the Deebo Samuel of an offense, where the offense is centered around getting him the ball as much as you possibly can, getting him the ball in space, letting him create and make plays. He's not ready yet to be a set it and forget it X receiver in the NFL. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
That's not how he'll succeed. So if he's put there early on in his career, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But he's a unique talent because at 6'2", 225 pounds, he can run 22.6 miles an hour on the field of play.
Yeah. Do you think he has the most volatility of the landing spot here for you? Because I felt like he probably wouldn't necessarily be a bust, I don't think, with anybody that drafts him. But to really get the full potential, it needs to be somebody who's going to use him in the right way, much like you were saying there.
Right. I think he does have the most volatility because he needs to go to an offensive coordinator that's going to be really creative with him and be willing to structure a large portion of their offense schematically around what he does really well. That's how he's going to succeed. We saw it with Deebo Samuel this year in comparison to Deebo Samuel in years past. The Niners offense was predicated around getting him the ball, especially after Mostert went down. Mostert was their RB1. Wilson went down. Elijah Mitchell did a great job. Kittle was hurt for majority of the year. So your biggest weapon is Deebo Samuel. So, and that's a big deal. I think Burks ends up going to the Packers or Cowboys. That's my prediction. I think both are in position to grab him. Burks will slide a little bit. Before I think the combine, he was probably slated to be anywhere from 10 to 15, but I think now we're going to see him anywhere from 18 to probably 24. But that will be interesting to see as well. And then the last guy I have in that tier is Skyy Moore.
Oh, there we go.
Skyy Moore.
Skyy Moore, huh?
Too wise.
I'm a really big Skyy Moore fan for a couple of reasons. He's only been playing the position for about 2.5 seasons. He came into Western Michigan as defensive back. And
why do they do that? So the piece of Western Michigan's always converting D-backs. I think wasn't Eskridge a D-back?
Dwayne Eskridge, yeah. I think Dwayne Eskridge actually played quarterback in high school as well. But with Skyy Moore, the one thing that's really intriguing is he steps in, goes into Western Michigan, changes positions, and puts up 800 yards as a freshman. Pretty impressive. Yeah. And then he just got better and better and better. He's a guy with inside-out versatility. I think he projects best in the slot primarily, but he's the best slot receiver in this whole class. So a team that's slot needy might grab him in the first round.
I guess him and Drake play different slots.
You think he could go first round, huh?
Yeah, I do. I think he can go back half the first round. I think the Chiefs are a landing spot for him that makes sense because he can play inside and out. He's so good after the catch as well. Dynamic accelerator. And he's only getting better because he's only played the position for 2.5 years. Right. So you're getting a guy who's really young in his craft, who produced at a really high level last year, Western Michigan, and I think who can be a really dynamic playmaker and be a high target share guy in the NFL, which is why I have him kind of above guys like Williams and Pickens and Olave. Yeah. Because I think he has the best combination of ceiling and floor. I think he's going to be a slot guy who's going to get a lot of slot targets. Yeah. But once he kind of hones his skill set, kind of how Cooper Kupp, inside out. Sure. You get a guy that can, play in the slot and do super well there, get some free releases and make plays in the ball. Get that guy more comfortable. He can play inside, outside, do a lot for your team. Yeah. And I think Skyy Moore is that guy. He also had the biggest hands in this class. Yeah, big hands. Kind of crazy. Yeah. Those things are like Velcro out there. Yeah, apparently. He's a snatcher. Yeah, so no, I'm excited to see where he lands. I think he's going to be a late first, early second round guy, I think, and he's going to surprise some people with his capital. That would certainly vault him up for a lot of people. I know there's some Skyy Moore love, but I think that would really put him on the map, and I think that could definitely make him a tier jumper. Like you said, he was 65% out wide this year, and then he went in that slot in 2020 at 88%, and then only at 16% in the slot in 2019. So he has, he's kind of jumped in and out and has that versatility, and he's got the speed to get you downfield as well.
4.41,
kind of in the Diontae Johnson kind of mold a little bit, maybe, but thicker. There's not a whole lot of thick receivers in this draft. Not that it maybe matters as much in today's NFL because
can't touch him.
You're not going getting crushed across the middle too much anymore. But 195, 5'10", where maybe some of these guys dropped a little bit of weight to run faster at the combine, but coming in, like a lot of those guys were pretty skinny dudes, whereas Skyy Moore came in looking pretty thick.
Yeah, he's one of those guys too that I think is going to surprise people with kind of where he wins on the field. He's a thicker guy, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a Golden Tate, Randall Cobb type build, right?
I think those are good comps there. Is that who would you? That's
crushing the comps on this episode.
Yeah.
That's what the people want. Give them what they want.
I was going to put Jameson Williams, the next guy to the Chiefs. We've talked about that on Patreon a little bit. And if he goes there, I think that skyrockets his value and would jump him up into this tier for most people.
Right.
But Skyy Moore, you just said maybe to the Chiefs there. That would certainly, again, just skyrocket him up into that tier for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think so. When we talk about like Jameson Williams, I really like what we saw, with the brief stint in Alabama. I think he's the dark horse, kind of like how we remember Henry Ruggs was the first receiver drafted to the Raiders a couple years back, and we thought, okay, it's got to be Lamb, it's got to be Judy, and it was Ruggs. That same thing can very well happen with Williams. I don't think he slides past 15. If the medicals check out, he's a top 15 pick.
Really?
Yeah, I think the NFL, he's one of those guys that there's one of these usually in every class. The guy's just a level 3 burner. And he's going to be someone where the threat of Williams is more important than his actual play. Like Will Fuller. That's who, like for me, my mold comparison for him on AGS is Will Fuller. I think just him being on the field is a giant deal for what an offensive coordinator can do schematically and make a defensive coordinator's life a living hell. So I think that's a big deal for me when we're talking about Williams. Do I think he'll have a large fantasy impact? That depends on the landing spot. If you have Jalen Hurts throwing you the ball versus Justin Herbert, that's a big difference.
It's huge.
And that's the issue I have there. There's going to be a lot of variance with him as opposed to a guy like Skyy Moore. Like I know Skyy Moore is going to be targeted. And he's going to get his slot targets and he can work down the field. But a guy like Jameson Williams coming off the ACL, A, we don't know how healthy he is. B, he's a level 3 option to start his career. I don't know how much he'll work on level 1, level 2, but we'll see. But yeah, I like him a lot as a real life football player. In fantasy, there's a lot of variance there for him.
Yeah. He's a game. When we broke him down, he was just like a game wrecker.
He doesn't call himself the Juice Man for no reason.
I mean, you're either gonna be, hey, we're doing a good job, and then fuck, there he goes. It's just
that makes your day in fantasy too, though. And you mentioned Will Fuller. He did slide, I think, to like pick 28 or something kind of later in that round. But other guys like that, the burners, like you said, have vaulted up into the top 10, top 15 of the draft. So that's highly possible. If that happens, I feel great about the medical side of things.
I do too.
And 100%. I'd be like fucking stoked. I'd be all in.
So you think Jameson Williams is going to go higher than Burks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Burks is probably I think Burks goes after Olave.
But
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it goes right now. Wilson, London, Williams, or Wilson, Williams, London. One of those, and I think Wilson probably the first one off the board. But if London's medicals check out too, I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons nab him.
Right. I was going to bring up the Falcons as which one of those guys do you think? Because they're in desperate need and.
It depends on how Arthur Smith viewed.
Maybe they skip it and get later round wide receivers.
They might need a quarterback. So
yeah, it's true. So
or an O lineman.
But yeah, they need everything.
Or yes,
let's be honest. But yeah, Olave I think is going to go in the middle of the first round. I think.
And this is NFL. You're looking at this NFL lens right now.
Yeah. In the NFL draft for sure. But I think Olave is probably the most polished receiver in this class. The most NFL ready. Him and Wilson probably back to back in that facet, but I think a team takes Olave to be,
it's just sort of like Jameson Williams. You just said like he may not have the biggest impact on the field necessarily, but he can have an impact. How can I word? He may not personally have the impact of catching the ball, but he can stretch the defense out well enough to have an impact on the field. And it might not be the best fantasy player, I think his actual NFL impact is going to be way greater than what he will be in fantasy, which is kind of why I've dropped Olave for me out of this tier with these next guys with Jameson Williams in it, who we just talked about. And I actually have George Pickens in this next tier with Olave dropping down to the next tier.
Yeah, I do too, actually. So for me, Pickens is in that same tier with Williams. I think I have him right above Williams, actually, because I think, when you look at George Pickens,
I think we're about to get something good here.
Without the ACL, he's the best receiver in this class.
Ooh.
If that didn't happen, he was trained to be a top 10, top 8 NFL draft pick. That's what he was. Is that him now? We don't know. We were talking before the show about Treylon Wallace.
We're on the same page.
How Treylon Wallace was, consensus
Devy top guy,
top 25 in the NFL draft. 25 to 30 for some.
He's easily the top 5 best wide receivers 100%. In college football. Treylon.
Exactly. So for me, man, looking at George Pickens and his career arc, if he can return to form, he's going to be an absolute steal for
that form
NFL offense
was amazing.
Yeah, I was hoping that I like him because of the way he moves for a big man. So I thought maybe we were going to get a little the maestro of movement, the king of kinesiology breakdown here on Pickens. That was what I kind of noticed from him was that I really get enamored with those kind of guys, the Suttons 100%. And a Hakeem Butler kind of guy who move well for big. Now,
so
Hakeem
under control.
Didn't work out, but Pickens, you're right. That's why I've been drawn to him. Big, just pterodactyl-like guy who's a quarterback's best friend, can do the deep stuff and can take the top off.
And he's fucking mean too.
He is mean.
He's physical.
So physical. Like some of those jams on watching tape on him, he's just dragging dudes to the ground. But he also wins short and intermediate. Like he kind of could do everything.
He's a 3-level receiver, and that's gonna be what an NFL team gets. His health is in my opinion, the only real question mark. That he doesn't offer much after the catch.
He came back and hit a 50-yard catch in the national championship game, right? Like he came back, he got on the field, so that's a lot of positivity.
You're not wrong.
And I think
I like him a lot.
I think underrated in the Yak because he wasn't given the opportunity. Like there's not a ton of production because he was hurt a fair amount, and so
we don't know. So I mean, with Pickens, I think we just don't know.
Given how nasty he is with blocking and getting off jams, like he can yak it up. I'm not like that's my issue with Olave is he doesn't want any contact at all. There's no yak other than there's no breaking tackles.
It's like, oh, he fell down.
If you can get close enough to blow on it.
Can't play in Chicago,
No.
The Windy City.
I actually mocked Pickens of Chicago. So
I love it.
That's my Bears pick. I'd be thrilled. I'd be ecstatic as a Bears fan if we can get George Pickens.
Jumping around a bit, but you kind of had Jameson in that 15 range. That would be Eagles Saints kind of territory there. That would kind of make that a bummer a little bit for you, at least short term.
So I think let's say you mentioned Eagles first. If he goes to the Eagles, I am really high on Devontae Smith.
Yeah, me
because
too.
that tells me Sirianni wants to take Smith out of the level 3 role, and he did. He did a phenomenal job,
right,
at the level 3 role he played with Sirianni. Is that a great place for Devontae Smith fancy wise with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball? Probably not.
Yeah,
and I think Devontae Smith needs to go back to the movement Z role that he played at Alabama.
Sure,
and that will allow him to do that. So that will be great for Devontae Smith. I think it'd be great for that offense too, and Jalen Hurts to get another weapon on the field. I like Quez Watkins, and I don't think he's a bad player, but I think Jameson Williams offers you something a little different than Quez does.
Well, the Eagles, they've taken swings, but they've been missing. They hit with Devontae. They kind of redeemed themselves, but Rager and Arcega-Whiteside, like they probably need to take another swing. But are you gun shy when you've missed so many times? I guess if you just got Devontae, though, you're like, okay, we're on a hot streak. We're 1 for 1 in our last one.
So what I think might happen too with the Eagles is they might trade out on one of those picks if one of the defensive guys they like doesn't fall.
Yeah.
do they take Jameson Williams coming off the ACL, or do they trade that pick and reload and get another pick in 2023 and really try to have the capital to go after a guy like
another
Bryce
quarterback?
Young or CJ Stroud.
You got Hurts on basically a 1 year contract right now of like, hey, this is it, and then we already reloaded one of the bullets to next year. Maybe we see what we can do while everybody knows once that draft's live, everybody all of a sudden wants somebody. Hey, this guy's slipping. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that might happen with some of the defensive guys too, like a Kyle Hamilton, because he didn't test that well, but he's a phenomenal football player.
A lot of pass rushers. Their pass rushers are getting a little older.
Yep. So that's something I think the Eagles might explore. It's just because Hurts is either going to be their franchise quarterback or a 1 year rental. There's really no in between.
Right.
So it's like if either one of those work out, because you're going to have the capital to improve your team in 2023. So. We'll see what happens there, but I think Williams would really elevate that offense if they can have him. Yeah.
So back to Pickens real quick, and then we'll jump down to the next tier. Unless you have another guy in that kind of second tier, who does Pickens remind you of?
Oh man, so Pickens is one of those like nasty. I mean, honestly, man, like if we're talking like one guy that I think
Des Bryant-y?
I was gonna say like a Des Bryant, like Mike Evans type of nasty, or like dude just super physical and like loves to be physical. I think he's very much like Courtland Sutton, in a way where he's one of those guys that just does a great job of A, being physical, but B, contorting and selling out for balls. And that was the one thing that jumped out to me about Courtland Sutton watching his SMU tape was the dude sold out for everything. He used every bit of his length and athleticism to go up and get balls and
dive and lay out
the middle.
So many people are trying to run under that to keep running, and there's some deep plays. I'll probably show some from Pickens, like where he lays out, makes an incredible catch where some guys
quarterback's best friend, baby,
wouldn't lay out.
Yes, sir. You're right. So I mean, that's for me. I think. I'll be uploading his profile tomorrow, actually, because he's definitely going to win the free profile of the week. But
you must love him. You comped him to the hometown team, so you're like, let me get Pickens.
Like him a lot. I do like George Pickens a lot. If he can stay healthy, he might be one of those guys. Like right now, I have him in my I think it's my tier 4 on AGS. And the tier 4 for me is my primary receiving options. Like these are guys that are primary NFL receivers. Right below my tier 3 guys. He falls right below that, but I think he can be a Pro Bowl caliber player. If we get like George Pickens of freshman year and that ascension, he can be a Pro Bowl caliber player.
Not unlike the trajectory of Courtland Sutton either. Was also a fairly really highly touted guy, like we just talked about with Tylen, and kind of dropped down a little bit and got some value on him. Now we've had a little banged up injury here with Sutton, but not all that different than Pickens. But you can get all Angelo's stuff at Angelo Analysis. Make sure you head over there and check out what's going on the website, because there's a lot of awesome stuff. He keeps referring to different things on the website, I believe. So definitely go check that out. All right. So Olave would be kind of in the next tier of guys for me. I got Olave, Dotson, Bell, Skyy Moore, kind of all in this next tier, which you had Sky High. And so how would this tier break down for you?
So I have Olave in that tier with Pickens and Williams, right below Williams, I believe. So I think all those guys can be primary receivers. So these are guys that might be the number 1 or number 1B in an NFL offense, let's say. I have David Bell pretty high. He's kind of in the first part of my high ceiling, high risk tier, at tier 5 for me, because analytically he smashes. Right?
Sure.
He's produced in the Big Ten at an early age, but he's not super athletic. He's not explosive, but he's really good after the catch, which is kind of funny.
And I think he was like 5th in Yak or something.
Yeah, man, top 5 for sure. So it's like he's going to be someone who just does the dirty work.
And third and missed tackles forced. So there is some underlying athleticism there. It just doesn't pop out. Necessarily, it doesn't you're not like holy shit on the field, but the dude's been an alpha since the jump, since he got on a football field.
Right.
We ran a 4.65, so that's people's problem with the athleticism. But the analytics, like you mentioned, are off the charts. The dominator in the 69th percentile, breakout age real young in the 94th percentile, college target share in the 86th percentile. So very important from an analytical standpoint, which is kind of keeping his value not right. It kept it from being completely gone. Which is kind of a bummer because then we could get even more of a deal. But then when you run in that 4.65, it's like, okay, now we're going to get a deal on David Bell, right? In rookie drafts, I feel like.
I think, too, in the NFL draft, kind of see where he goes. I think he probably goes in the third round. That's, I think, is the most likely spot.
And that'd be decent enough draft capital, right? Right?
For sure. I mean, it means the NFL is not out on him. I mean, we see it. I think we saw it. There's guys that are, kind of like Watson, who could end up being potential day one guys, or he could fall like we saw like Denzel Mims fall a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Denzel Mims was mocked like as a top 15 pick after he ran his 40 and, everything looked good. And then he, ended up sliding 30, 40 picks plus. So I think that will be interesting to see like a guy like Watson, where he goes, because he's a level 3 guy, I think. Him and Alec Pierce are guys that are level 3 dudes. So it's like, can they develop a 3-level skill set? I don't know. Those guys are a bit riskier, in my opinion. But a guy like Jahan Dotson, too, in that facet, kind of like KJ Hamler. I think he's a good player. I don't know how much that guy like that will produce in the NFL. But he's one, too. Some people are mocking him in round 1.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have him right there with Skyy Moore. I kind of like them similarly, and like their game a little bit similarly, too. But I guess just from watching a decent, like I didn't watch too many Western Michigan games like live, actually watching the whole game. But like, I watched a decent amount of Penn State games, and like he was that dude. Whenever they needed something, he'd always bail them out of whatever it was. And it's like, where's that guy? And I like that factor in my receiver. And I feel like he came in a little light. He didn't seem like he would have been that light on the field. Like at 183, it seemed like maybe did he trim down to get a little more speed on the 40? I don't know. But I like Dotson a whole lot. Seems like you're probably down a hair on Dotson. Bell or Dotson? Who?
So I have Bell rated higher because I think if Bell gets into a role, it's going to be a safer role in terms of fantasy output. I think Jahan Dotson helps your team in real life more than Bell does. But I think fantasy-wise, I think Bell might be one of those guys that he could end up being a pretty high target share guy just because of how safe he is. He's reliable. He's good after the catch. Yeah. He's going to bail a lot of quarterbacks out on third down. So that's going to be a big thing with him. Dotson, if he gets into like only a third level role, then it's going to suck. Because it's like he just gets bogged down to only deep targets, which is great in the NFL because he's a threat. But in fantasy, it's a little tougher to project that week to week. It
just seems like he's a chain mover, man. I think he can do, like, that's why I like him, because it is kind of like Skyy Moore, where he can move the chains for you, but he could also take that top off. So, I really, that's why I have a decent amount of value put on Dotson, and he's been in big situations playing against big competition, and if I know that that's the guy, there's no way they don't know that that's the guy. So
watching what he did against Ohio State, top competition and some ridiculous catches, just a ridiculous catch radius and plucking ability, to just snatch the ball from anywhere in the air. Like it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, he's definitely a good player. I think to his draft capital be really indicative of what the NFL feels about him. Because a lot of people are like, hey, he could be a top. I've seen people mock him.
Dotson will get more value than Bell in the real draft?
Value?
Capital.
Capital, I think Dotson's a top. He's probably going to go top 32. He's a back end of the first round guy, likely. Like him or Skyy Moore are going to be first rounders. Either one of those guys.
You're putting your money on at least one of those guys being a first rounder?
100%.
Love it.
I think one of those guys will. Christian Watson's another dark horse. I'm not very high on him in comparison to guys like Moore and Dotson.
Well, how could you be? How can you properly evaluate a guy like Watson? Because there's very little tape to watch. There are a few all 22s that I can find, but it's not great footage. They didn't throw the ball very much. It's just, you're basically going off. It's kind of like guys like in years past, Carlos Henderson, Taywan Taylor, a guy recently on this slipping my mind, but you just couldn't. There wasn't much to watch on them, and they're gaining all this hype because then they blow up the combine and
Did well in the Senior Bowl.
Right.
He's fast. He's tall.
Right. But it's just like, how can I really properly evaluate this guy? So it's like he might, if the NFL evaluates him and gives him a ridiculous draft capital, then, going to have to figure some shit out. But until then, I can't be all in on a guy I can hardly evaluate.
I was fine with Watson when he was that second round guy. Hey, you want to take the home run cut on, and I'm talking about in a fantasy draft.
Right.
Hey, take the home run cut on. But now it seems like he's just, almost always tossed into that first round somewhere, which, I think I'm out on that.
No, yeah, I agree. He's tough because it's, you like the size, speed. But the thing is, like, high drop rate, very limited route tree. So it's like, where's this guy going to go? Like, if he goes to, let's say, the Chicago Bears, my hometown team, you're downgrading him significantly. But if he goes like the Chargers, that's a different story. He can produce there and be a level 3 guy, and then potentially, with
work his
him
way.
and Mike Will and Keenan Allen, find a 3-level role. So he's going to be pretty landing spot dependent. A guy like Bell can probably produce anywhere. On film, I have a guy like Dotson a little bit higher than a guy like Watson.
Mm-hmm. And what, like a David Bell type of player? Who's a David Bell type of player?
That's a good question. I think it's kind of like a Doug Baldwin-esque type dude.
Love
where
that.
It's like he's just gonna get you
R.I.P. Doug.
Yeah, he's gonna get you the tough yards after the catch. He's gonna be kind of the safety blanket for your offense.
Runs routes like a crispy, fresh white tee. That's what we used to say about Doug Baldwin. Crispier routes than a fresh white tee.
That's hilarious. I'm going to use that from now on. In David Bell's profile, you're going to find out in the mold of crispy, fresh white tea.
Yeah, fresh, crispy white tea. I don't know which order to put the words in.
It's nothing better than hitting the corner store and popping one of those fresh whites.
It's white for like a day over here, and then I got to get another
That's
one.
their daily use. This is what it's a daily use
Single
deal.
use?
Yeah. If you get 2 uses, it's great.
At least biodegrades.
That's fantastic. That's the content we want right there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
100%.
That's funny, man.
It's entertaining.
So, all right. So Jahan Dotson, we'll wrap this category up with give us, you got a comp and a landing spot you'd like to see for a guy like Dotson?
Oh man, for Dotson, I think the variance is going to be pretty wide. I think it's tough because I think it's kind of like a KJ Hamler type player, even though they both went to Penn State. Mm-hmm. I think he might be a guy that helps in real life more than fantasy.
Yeah.
I think he's a first round pick potentially. The NFL is going to really like a guy like him. Reliable, produced on the third level. Big threat. I think he's going to be at the worst. I think he's a top 40 pick. Bell might slide to the third round. A guy like Watson, I think is same thing, probably a top 40 pick.
Yeah,
because the size, speed.
Yeah. Do you have anybody else in this next tier that maybe I didn't have in there, or?
Let me see. I don't think so. I think it was those two guys. I think also Justyn Ross was a guy that I had in that tier with Bell, and I have high ceiling, high risk. I have Bell, Ross, Watson, and then Dotson right below because analytically he didn't shake out as well as Bell and Ross did.
Sure,
but Justyn Ross is one too, kind of like Pickens, but in a lesser vein, the injuries.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it's significant, right?
Super, the vertebrae, the foot.
He had neck surgery in June of 2020. He had a stinger in spring practice. They took him in for like a checkup and found that he had a congenital fusion in his spine. So they did neck surgery on that.
Spinal fusion, that's correct.
Worked his way back, and then missed all of 2020, obviously, but worked his way back to 21. And was reportedly playing through a stress fracture the entire season, is what Dabo Swinney said. He tweaked it against UConn in November and then ended up having foot surgery. So you hate, neck surgery, foot surgery. That's a bummer. But, he just came onto the scene so hot. That freshman year in 18,
Right.
he had 46 receptions for 1,000 yards. That's good for 21.7 yards per carry. So he must be good. 9 touchdowns. Catch. Right. So, that's the high breakout age, a young breakout age, dominator only in the 52nd percentile, but, target share overall 67th percentile. So that's hitting your analytical thresholds that you want to see. If that's what you're into, came out as a 4-star recruit and just lit it up as a freshman. And if you go back and really at the end of that freshman season, like just crushed it against Alabama and whoever we played in that first playoff game, he just lit up those last 2 games of the season to really put himself on the map. And he was projected as a first-round pick coming into 2020 before they knew about the neck surgery. They were like, if him and DJ, or no, it was Trevor. Trevor was going to be there with him, and he just didn't get to end up play.
Yeah.
He didn't get to play.
So what you did here is you brought up the Clemson guy to the Clemson grad, and now he blacked out.
I came ready. I blacked out. What happened?
Fantastic.
So tell me what you like about Justyn Ross so much. I can't wait to hear. How does he move?
I think that great mover. I think you're. That was the first time I've said on the show. I think so. I mean,
tried to bait you into Pickens, but you didn't take the bait.
I know. I knew you were doing that shit too. Are you funny? All right. But no, like Ross is an interesting one because the size is what really sticks out to you. Right?
6'4", 205. Yeah.
Big dude. Right. He's gonna help you in the red zone immediately. Large catch radius. Produced at the highest level as a freshman.
True frosh.
So that's what you like. Producing as an 18-year-old, like that's really impressive. The injuries are super scary though. Like for his not only like fantasy but just quality of life. Like this is something where if we look at this and the NFL doctors say no, we'll know that. Like we go back to it, Tylan Wallace. Like Tylan Wallace. People thought he was a early, late day 1, early day 2 pick. Slid to the 5th round.
5th, yep. 5th.
We could see the same thing happen with Justyn Ross. We could see Justyn Ross slide. For me right now, I have him as a 3rd rounder. I think that's fair for his upside, but also I could see him being a 5th, 6th round guy.
Right.
If his medicals don't check out and teams don't want to take on the medical risk of him. But I also think he has a ton of upside. I think in rookie drafts you might be getting a bargain.
Huge.
If you're in the 3rd round of your rookie draft,
sure,
maybe
Justyn
4th.
Ross, to Justyn Ross all day.
Yeah,
it's like this is a guy too. Like when I graded him out, like analytically he's in the 95th percentile of this class. He grades analytically better than Burks, London, Wilson, Moore.
Right.
The only player who really has a candle to him analytically is David Bell.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because that guy can be a number 1 option in the NFL offense if he's healthy, and that's the biggest if that I think we've ever seen medically.
Right. Yeah. And he's probably going to fall. A guy like Dion Kane came out of Clemson. He had other off the field.
Dion Kane, yep.
He had other off the field concerns, not like injury concerns. He slipped to like the 4th round. And I believe the Colts took him and then got a lot of hype in the preseason. But they're kind of similar archetypes, I guess. Archetypes.
There you go.
But then he tore his ACL, I believe, and then we haven't heard from him again. Justyn Ross, similar mold, is probably going to fall. He's going to fall regardless.
Yeah, I think.
But he's going to be close to free. You probably get him in the end of the 3rd, 4th round.
Well, it depends. If he does go if the capital gets bumped up and somebody's willing to take the risk, then the value in your rookie draft will probably dissipate some. But he's definitely the guy. Like whereas I was like, hey, take your home run cut with Christian Watson. Well, now he's out of play. If I could still take that cut on Ross, mid 3rd. To 4th, then I think that's a fantastic home run cut at that point because, I mean, you're drawing straws mostly at that point anyway.
Right. No, I agree.
So Justyn Ross. So let's wrap the wide receivers up with. I kind of got Metchie and Wandell in the next tier. When I like both of those guys a lot. So we've kind of gone through all these guys, and it's like most everybody we've talked about so far. I got no problem with putting on my team, and then I probably have Watson. And Rosses of the world and the Tolberts and the the Boise State guy, probably all those guys down, in that next tier of jumbled up guys. But let's round out with Metchie and Wan'Dale. What are your thoughts on those guys?
I think Wan'Dale's interesting because he transfers from Nebraska to Kentucky, finally gets the role in the offense in the SEC and lights it up.
Yeah.
Love his tape. I mean, he's just one of those guys where you just pop it on.
It's so fun.
Watch. It's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how, not at this level, but Tavon Austin tape.
Yeah.
Like, when I was a kid,
that's
what I used to do. I used to go on YouTube and type in the player highlight tapes. The two best highlight tapes in college that I watched, Tavon Austin, phenomenal. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's an evergreen one. And then one that was really good, Javid Best.
Oh, yeah.
Great highlight tape.
Yeah.
But that's really
broke my heart, that Javid Best.
What was your boy CJ Prosise had some pretty incredible college.
CJ Spiller had a great tape.
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush
doesn't
like
count.
On the Mount
He doesn't count. Yeah, okay.
He's on his own He's on his
pedestal.
own plane of highlight tapes.
Michael LaShore. Remember Michael LaShore?
Okay, Mikal LaShore, of course.
Yeah.
I'm an Illini fan.
Mikal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Mikal LaShore, watched him live run over dudes is great.
Was that a neck injury? What is it? What happened?
It was something. I think it was a neck or shoulder. It was something funky because he did really well at the Lions.
Yeah.
Best highlight tape of all time.
Was Best on the Lions too?
Noel Devine.
Oh yeah, another West Virginia guy.
Dude, his high school highlight tape is the most absurd thing you could ever witness. Ever.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
When I was in high school age, like I didn't necessarily ever really have a college team, but I used to just, West Virginia for a while there was just putting out the most fun teams.
Oh, Pat White.
Oh, yeah. Steve Slayton.
Yeah. Who is Stedman Bailey?
Bailey, yeah.
Stupid good.
Yeah.
But yeah. To get back on track, Robinson's kind of in that fun highlight tape mold. I have no idea how he can produce at his size in the NFL. I think we see I don't think he's on the level of Rondale Moore. I had Rondale Moore as a Pro Bowler last year. I think he's an incredible talent. But, Kingsbury doesn't really want to use him, so it's his fault.
Right.
But I don't know, man. It's tough. I think a guy like that, kind of like Burks, but in a miniature version, you kind of have to design your offense around him in order for him to be successful.
That was our problem.
He's not a guy you can just line up and have him succeed. But then you have a guy on the opposite end of the spectrum like Metchie, where it's like he's a good player. Like he's going to do the right thing.
I feel like he's getting slept on hard right now.
He's getting really slept on because of the ACL.
Right.
I think he's going to be – I have them all in the same tier, him, Dotson, and Robinson. I have Dotson at the top of that tier, Metchie at the bottom. But there's not a lot of variance there. Excuse me. But I think with Metchie, it's the big thing is if he's healthy, he was supposed to be a second-round pick.
He's so good all around. He just everything in his game.
Just reliable.
He's got a little bit of juice. If that's what you're looking for. He's got the intermediate skills. He's got quick change of direction in the short area.
He did all the dirty work for Alabama last year while Jameson was getting all well-deserved accolades. But
and that's important. We talk a lot about having these high-level guys, but having depth in fantasy is really important. And he's 100%. A guy that's going to have a long career, I think. Yeah. If he can stay healthy and returns off the ACL, he's going to be a super helpful piece to any offense.
Yeah.
Good after the catch. You can throw him quick outs and screens. You can throw him contested catches in the red zone. He goes up and gets that shit. Like it's great all-around game. He's completely being slept on.
Yeah, I think you didn't see him in the championship. You didn't see him at the combine. You didn't. I feel like he's just, and he was forever. He was in the Alabama mold. He's the next guy. He's the next guy. And then there was always just somebody who kind of overshadowed him a little bit. And then we thought it was this year, and Jameson Williams comes in. So I feel like it's just setting up perfect for some real good value here with Metchie.
I agree, 100%.
Real quick before we get out of here, so we're recording this show on Saturday, and I don't know when it'll drop on YouTube. I'm going to do some nice little editing for you guys' visual pleasure. But we're live right now for the patrons, so they're getting like an early look. We got Las Fats in the chat. He was wondering, he wanted to get your take on some Alec Pierce, and I was like, that's I'm interested in Alec Pierce too, because he's like a cheaper version of Christian Watson, right? And
Let's go. Let's just switch gears, and basically that's how I was going to end this.
Okay.
Let's kind of talk about, you got any your guys kind of guys on the way out, and if we don't hit Alec Pierce, I think what you were about to say is a really good point, Jay. But who you got any other guys who were
some late round sleepers, guys you got to get when you're going later in these drafts?
Sure. I like Khalil Shakir a bit. I think he's pretty good.
That's the Boise State receiver.
Yes, it is. I think he's going to be a pretty good slot option. He'll probably. I hope he ends up being what we wanted Dante Pettis to be. Same mold of player, I think, or similar. When we talk about Alec Pierce, whoever asked that question, great question, because he's one of those guys that's kind of ascended recently.
Mm-hmm.
Had a really good pre-draft process, ran really well,
Mm-hmm.
measured in well. Like everything about him, has stock arrow up. I don't know how good of an NFL receiver he's going to be, but he's going to be productive as an X, and maybe not a super high level X receiver, but he's going to be someone where you can put him out there and he's going to try to, be on level 3 and take top off the defense and play that role. I don't think he'll ever be like a 60, 70, 80 reception plus guy, but I think he's someone in the NFL that NFL teams need that guy right now. With how the NFL is playing it. Also, like when you think about some of the best teams in the NFL right now, like, the Rams, the Bills, like these are the Bills, the Chiefs. These are teams that have explosive, like one play touchdown guys.
Yeah.
That's the big deal right
and
now.
some
in the NFL.
decent depth with it.
And that too. And that's the big thing. Now with like the Rams adding like Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
Like Allen Robinson, Cup, you bring back OBJ maybe. Like you have an offense like that. But I think
people were clamoring for Gabe Davis in that Bills, and then we finally saw it in the playoffs, and just kind of exactly what you're saying, just kind of a guy who steps right in, big, fast, strong, physical, and then look what he did when he got the chance, blew up. And
yeah, it could happen in the right offense. I think looking where Pierce gets drafted is important. To me, he's anywhere from a second round guy to end of the 4th, early 5th. So if he gets that second round capital, that means an NFL team's you're thinking you're slotting him in there day 1 at X. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's important, but a great question.
And you're probably, if he goes that high, you're probably not going to get a discount on him anymore in his rookie drafts. But that's what I'm really loving, because the production it's not like he had an amazing production. Only had a college dominator in the 36th percentile. And I think he had 52 catches last year. That's the most catches he ever had. Never broke 1,000 yards. Did have a 57th percentile target share, so that's not the worst, and broke out pretty early. So there's things to like about him, and what I really like about him is that he's so cheap right now. And he's like that big home run cut to take in the 3rd round. Of
he's
the
Justyn Ross or the Christian Watson.
He's the Christian Watson of the 2nd round, or the Jameson Williams of the 1st round. He's that same kind of guy you can take a swing on, same kind of swing in the 3rd, maybe even 4th round, depending on how draft capital, shout out to John Bauer, plays out.
I was just watching an interview. I forget, maybe it was Rich Eisen or somebody, but they had Luke Fickell on, and I think at one point they converted him to a linebacker. So he's been he wasn't even playing receipt
6'3", 211.
So he's kind of been moved around a little bit, but he's got that, like you said, that big vertical speed, physical guy.
4.41 in the 40. That's what's really why everyone's talking about him right now.
So, and then Jalen Tolbert, I think, is another guy who a lot of people like.
Yeah,
the
South
dart
Alabama.
throw on. Yeah,
yes, sir. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the smaller, really, really small school receivers, like Tolbert, Watson, you're gonna have to watch the Capitol, because these scouts do their homework, man. I mean, they're watching every snap of these guys' career in college, and we get to kind of see, what they think of their NFL potential.
Yeah.
If he falls to the 5th, 6th round, then you're probably not in a guy like that.
Yeah.
But if he goes in the 3rd round, you're like, okay, this is a guy that NFL front offices think can be a pretty early producer.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap up this side, and let's jump over to the running back side real quick, but take a quick commercial break.
We'll be right back.